you need to have any technical questions or issues, you can either contact me in the chat pod, or my email address is right there, and that's the best place to reach me during a webinar. And at this point, I will hand it back over to Marion, and thank you very much.
And I think we're going to go right to Dave. So Dave, welcome.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Jennifer, for supporting and structuring our time together. And welcome, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Isn't it convenient that the document that we're talking about, the English Language Proficiency Standards for Adult Ed, are in a bright and bold color red? And so I'm going to be playing with that today. Our title for our webinar is What Educators Need to Know and Heart About the English Language Proficiency Standards, or AKA HELPS for ELPS. Session 1. We're going to do an introduction and some scaffolding and talk about an overview. So let's see what you guys are about, what you want from our time together. So if I can ask Jennifer to put the format that has our chat boxes to see where we are at right now. So if you look there, I did broadcast the results. It looks like about 2/3 of us have a copy and have read parts or all of our document that we're going to discuss today. So that's great. Some people, about 1/3 of us, are just getting started here. That's just fine. A few people, one person has studied it and may have some specific questions. And no one, and this totally makes sense, has really begun implementing it. And that makes, like I said, that makes total sense. So there's a spectrum here leaning towards some general understandings and first-time exposure. So why are you here for this? As I look at our second chat box, it looks like just a little over half of us want to get an overall understanding, and that makes sense if we're pretty new to these. Some of us have some specific concerns about the alignments of standards and NRS levels. We'll talk briefly about that. And really, almost 1/3 of us really are getting into the meat of the matter, the heart of the matter, how we combine ELPS with the CCRS to do the task which we're being called to, and that's increasing rigor for our English language learners. So let's look, if we would, at our agenda. First of all, I want to make note, as you see on the screen, after letter A, this is my first exposure. If you would like to have an even more foundational, broader introduction, we do have archived Marianne Federle-McLeod's webinar that she did to introduce this to us. So I encourage you to go back to CalPro's website and see that if you'd like a little bit more broad understanding of how this all came together. So here's what we're about today. First, I want to give you some FAQs. There have been questions that came up as I've spoken with people recently, and especially during Marianne's earlier webinar introducing. And I think it'd be great to just kind of answer some questions and then be able to move on to kind of clear the road and have a real strong beginning. What I really like to focus on today is the why, the what, and the how. We need to all come together around the understanding of the rationale and the background for the standards. It's really about equity and acceleration of the U.S. workforce development. We'll talk about what's included in the document, specifically the 10 guiding principles, 10 standards and their organization, and the 1 through 5 level descriptors. There's more in the document, but these are our focus for today. And we'll start to talk about how we apply these and this key task of scaffolding to help learners really reach and work with those college and career readiness standards. Now, I want to also encourage you to feel free to, okay, Susan, I'll speak louder, to do just what Susan did and make known in the chat box your concerns, your questions. I'll try and keep checking in with that as we go through our time together today. There will be some Talking Dave times here, but I'd like to make this as interactive and constructivist as possible. So let's push on. All right, let's get some basic understandings out at the fore here. First of all, there's been some concern from the field about the role of the ELPS. And so if you look at the first bullet, it's really important that we understand that the English language proficiency standards for adult education do not replace the college and career readiness standards. They are a language lift. That's language from the document itself. And this language lift is really to help students reach and engage successfully in the CCRS. And I love the visual I stole from one of the authors of our document, Patsy Egan from Minnesota. You can see that we're really trying to help our students come up through the ELPS to reach the CCRS and get where they need to go along their pathways. The next bullet is this. There is not a one-to-one alignment between the ELPS, the CCRS, and the NRS levels. That's really significant, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. The level descriptors that you find in the ELPS document, there are 1 through 5, they correspond to and they go along with each of the standards. They are not aligned to ESL levels. And why is that? Well, this is to acknowledge the fact that teachers need to apply one or maybe a few levels within a standard to differentiate instruction in their classes. Because we know, single level, multi-level, students have different levels of skills within the same class. So this is going to be a theme, a topic that we're going to come back to, this idea of differentiation and, again, scaffolding. So I don't want us to get too caught up and worried about alignment, but I do want to acknowledge that's a concern for people. So let's talk about that. And if you're new to this whole, if you're new to the document and haven't looked at it a whole lot, I'm going to throw some ideas out there that are really right now to answer some questions from some people who have spent a little bit of time with it. So if this doesn't totally make sense right now, that's okay. I just kind of want to get out in front of us some questions that some people have been looking at it for a while have had and get those taken care of. First of all, first bullet. In general, as you look through the document, you'll see this idea, this language around correspondences. And just know that these are comparisons between non-equivalent artifacts that help educators to understand the relationship between sets of standards. Because as we know, we have the CCRS and now the ELPS. There are previous model standards. And we need to know that these comparisons don't result in full alignment. I said that before, I'm just repeating it because that's important. So what do we think about that? Well, until we get and after we have specific alignments, our work will really remain the same. We need to find ways to enable our students to learn the language they need to succeed in college, career, and civic tasks. So let's keep our eyes on the ball, and I'll say this throughout. What we're doing and what the standards are really encouraging us to do is keep observing our students to be reflective and then to be active in implementing scaffolding to really help our students get to where they need to be, because we know the standards are about equity, all students reaching their pathways and goals. All right. So let's talk about goals. Overview of goal for adult education. And this has to do with the why. Why do we have these standards? Why are they such a big deal? Well, it's about accelerated career pathway advancement. And here we have a trajectory. If you look from the left lower and move up to the right, you'll see that over time we've been talking about and working to give our students language skills and these soft skills to make them more employable. Are they good communicators? Can they relate to people? Are they organized and self-regulating? Okay, that's great. So we realize that we need to contextualize the learning, not just language for language's sake, but language for doing functions and using documents, using situations that really make the learning very real and more applied. Really important now is IET, or Integrated Education and Training. This is where we take basic skills such as language learning and put it in the context with learning skills for trade or possibly family literacy. This may include dual immersion or vessel classes where ESL classes are really about helping people who are in the healthcare trade pathway. And finally, what is it all about? It's about higher education. We want our students to be able to get beyond where they are. We know that we need more than high school diplomas, and we want them to get at least 2 years of college or really good advanced career training, because it's about the workforce. It's about the workforce. And we need to keep this in mind, as you see at the bottom of the slide, as questions remain unanswered about some of the standards and alignments, and as we're challenged really to do the task of helping our students with this increased rigor. Okay, so a couple more slides here about this, and then we'll move on. If you look at these instructional models, there are 4. This is really a visual to say what our new task is. At the top, sequential has been the mode we've used, where, well, people can't learn trade skills until they have some language. So those orange circles are language skills, and then maybe they get some higher academic skills, and then they can get some trade, technical skills. Well, we know that's not fast enough. We're working with adults, and they need to move more quickly, and they're going to be more engaged if the work that they're doing in learning the language is tied closely to their felt relevant needs. So the next model is concurrent. You can have students taking language classes while academic classes, including math, and then overlap it with trade classes, CTE. Moving down, you see it's coordinated. There's a much more coordinated work between teachers of those different courses. And ultimately, what we'd love to see is integrated, where those skills are taught together. That's a real quick way of describing it, but if we start with this visual and this idea that's really important that we integrate these things and that we accelerate and streamline our students' learning according to the AEBG language, we're in a much better place. And so what does that have to do with language instruction and learning? Well, here's one way to think about it. If you look at the bottom left, you'll see that a quick history of language instruction. I see you, Susan. Hang on there. That in the beginning, and for a lot of time in terms of language instruction, ESL or ESOL, we've been focused on a linguistic kind of grammar-based instruction. And we've seen that we know the way adult learning theory works, that people need it to be more communicative. They need fluency and accuracy. And now what we're seeing in this new age is really content-based language use. With this emphasis on workforce development, language learning has to be really content-based. And it's not just language learning, it's real use. Authentic real-world performance and use of the language. So Susan asks, are we shooting for the integrated model? I would say that that is a big, big emphasis in WIOA and at the state level, which now those two things are really married, the block grant and WIOA. So that is happening more and more across the state, but it's not the only model. We want multiple points of entry and exit with different approaches that work for different types of students. But that is a very key element in what is being proposed and encouraged for application and implementation in what we do. All right, so there's our overview. Why are we doing these standards and what it's all about? We need to move our students along, but we know they're still learning the language. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat pod, and everything that you put in there, and as we go forward, I'm going to use to help me develop the second webinar, which I'll talk about later. All right, so what are the components of the ELPS that we're really focusing on? First of all, 10 guiding principles. Not only do we have standards, but we have some principles. What do we know about adult language learners or English language learners that can really guide us in this process? And this is going to really help us with our decision making. If you have your document, look at page 8. But I'm going to move us on. Of course, we have the standards. The short version is page 15. And we have level descriptors. So for each standard, for each student performance of the standard, we want to help differentiate and scaffold instruction. Those are two key words that I'll keep coming back to, differentiate and scaffold. So we're really going to look at those today. So how do we do all this stuff? Well, sorry about the formatting there, guys, but the important thing is that when we talk about the standards, we want to use them in different ways. There are 2 views or formatting styles, which we'll talk more about in the next webinar. But what's key here is that the way we look at and use the the standards is really going to be tied closely to what's happening for our students for their math education, science, engineering, and the academic English language arts. A big part of this document is supports and scaffolding, and there's a great appendix, Appendix C, which we'll come back to again in the next webinar. I highly encourage you to look at that. And finally, and really cool in this document, I really love, are the vignettes of classroom implementation. Don't we want to see what it looks like to use these standards in a classroom with real students? So there's some great vignettes. I encourage you to check those out. We'll be talking more about those in the next webinar. All right, so what time is it? We're doing great. let's talk about the guiding principles. So I highlighted or made bold the key words. I'm just going to read them to you. You just follow along. Number one, adult language learners have the potential to meet state-adopted challenging academic standards. Rigor is the name of the game. We need students who are successful in the workforce who can earn life-sustaining, family-sustaining jobs. And that requires more challenging academic standards. But we know that they have the potential to do this. Our students do. It's right there up front center in the document. Number two, adult English language learners represent a diverse population of learners. This is a really important guiding principle. We need to keep this in mind. Number three, adult English language learners' funds of knowledge are a resource for their learning. We have adult students who are a diverse population, who have lived some life. This is key. We need to keep that in mind as we develop learning activities and objectives and assessments. Number four, social language, really important for English language learners in English language acquisition process. Not just academic, but the real language between people. Number five, three key instructional advances form the basis for them. Those are part of our CCRS, and our adult English language learners really need to work with complexity, information building, and texts that are more complex. Number six, adult English language learners must be able to successfully engage with a wide variety of informational texts. In the real world, what we're preparing our students for, that's where they're aiming for. A lot of informational texts. Number seven, scaffolding. It's come up before, it'll come up again. This is an essential tool to help our students acquire language and content. Number eight, ELLs with disabilities have specific instructional needs. How exciting that this is called out and named in the document. Teachers have been talking about this for years, so this is great. Number nine, multimedia technology. Again, super important in our age. And this is aligned so that it's integrated into our instruction. And number 10, academic language instruction should be incorporated into all content lessons, including math and science. Okay, Zoom, that was fast. So what I'd like for you to do is just initially, again, this is just a first sweep at it for some of us. Look at the chat boxes. There are two of them. And I want you to post in one or both of them. In the top one, of the 10 guiding principles, which one or two are the most critical in your mind? Okay, hopefully you've downloaded this and you can pull it up on the side of your computer screen. And otherwise, we'll go back to them. So that's the top box. Begin typing whenever you're ready. In the bottom box, you're going to say, what are one or two that are really puzzling to you? Or perhaps ones that wouldn't be in your first box. They're less critical. They're not as important. Let's take some time, and I encourage you to start with the top box, and then if you have time, go ahead and tell the bottom. Again, top box is what's most critical. Lower box, less critical. I'm going to go back to those principles if you need to see them. All right, thanks for jumping in, Susan. You say that our adult English language learners' funds of knowledge are a resource for their learning. Yes, we have adults. We know about adult learning principle. If you want to say more about why you think that, I really encourage you to do that. I should have said that more up front. Tell why you think that. Rana says that rigor and scaffolding are crucial. And I love the fact that you put those two together because in my mind, they really are, they work together, right? If we're going to have rigor, we need to have scaffolding. And why have scaffolding unless we have something that's challenging and meaty for our students? Got a few of you guys saying scaffolding. I see Patricia, hey Patty, has put that up there. Carla, who else has said that? Yesenia, Deborah, Seema. I hope I'm saying that right. Yeah. Scaffolding is really important. Alexander shares that funds of knowledge, like we said earlier, is also important, right? Um, Carla's sharing that it's really important we have a wide variety of informational text. Why do you think that is, Carla? Why do you think that's so critical? Hello, Gretchen. She's sharing 6 and 7. Those informational text and scaffolding. Yeah. Again, hearing those is really critical for our students. Steven says social language is important. Yeah, talk to any ABE or ASE teacher who has former ESL students. They really want our students to have good social language, um, to be able to hear and understand instructions and engage with students as they construct learning together. All right. Nice. Stephen is sharing that that meeting academic challenges is really important for our students. Yeah, front and center. Okay. People are still typing. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. All right. Dominica says that multimedia technology. Yeah. I've spent some time lately in the hospital, not for myself, but everybody from the someone who's cleaning rooms to LVNs to RNs to doctors, they're all on some kind of gadget. And we see it throughout our world. All right, Lane, thanks for giving us a little because. Social language is important because it's not always in the textbook. We really need the teacher to help supply it. I love that. That's a really great comment. And I think most of us would be right on board with you there. Okay. Thanks, Carol, for sharing again about funds of knowledge, scaffolding. Nice. Okay, so we really are getting that. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. What I'm seeing as I look quickly through this are you guys really calling out social language, scaffolding, funds of knowledge, and informational texts. Those are the biggies. Okay. Yeah, thanks, John. The first 4 items. At the beginning level, just feeling comfortable with English is a big step. Ha, nice. Okay, good. And we all really have to believe, as Jennifer calls out, that number 1, that our students can meet these challenges. If we don't believe that, then none of the rest makes any sense. All right. Nice. Thanks, Carla, for following up with that. We need, we know that language and information goes beyond printed word, and so we need to understand information in various shapes. Beautiful. Okay, I'm going to read a few of the least critical things. Okay, a little bit of controversy may come up here. We'll just see. All right. Oh, I'm looking back at the general chat bot real quick here. Some of you guys put your thoughts in the general chat bot. I'm going to have you put them over on the right in those 2 other chat bots. But Susan Gare, looks like number 9 is my new CATISL presentation. Isn't it always, Susan? If you guys don't know, Susan Gare is one of our most progressive early adopters for technology, and please seek her out at any of our conferences. Just a little plug for you, Susan. All right, so least critical. Diane says they're all important. I agree. Least critical, social language and diverse population. Okay, I think most of us get that we have a diverse population, even when all of our students are Spanish speakers, perhaps, or similar socioeconomic background. Yeah, if you had to choose, right, Gerardo? All right, Linda says they're all important. I can't choose. Susan Gare, number 8 puzzles us because we don't know much. Yes, I think that's a great thing to call out. I think the standards call that out, but they don't say a whole lot about it per se. However, and this is something we'll talk about in the next webinar, I think that whole universal design for learning, or designing our learning so that those who need the most scaffolding and the most support get it, how that also benefits those who need the least. So that when we look at those, and we will, the descriptor levels 1 through 5, we're going to see how trying to apply those will help with our students with learning disabilities. But I think you're right, Susan. That's something we need to learn more about, how to apply in real ways in our classroom. Okay, Priyati says, I'd like to learn more about the 3 key instructional advances. Cool. We can make sure we address that. Um, all right. Yeah, I'm just scrolling through what you're saying. I think a lot of you guys are saying that we get it, that we have a diverse population. We're also challenged by technology, and it's not necessarily of our own doing. It may be just the system that we're working with, the bandwidth that we have, the hardware we have in our schools, and we're not up to speed. Okay, this is all good. And just so you know, we are going to keep track and save all of your chat information. I'm going to be looking it over and using it to help me prepare for the next webinar, and we can share this with you. Okay. Yeah, Lee is calling out academic language instruction and how schools are struggling to do that. And I think that's a really great question. We'll be addressing that in our next webinar. And I also want to encourage you guys, since I'm just talking about professional development, and we will talk more about this, there is a CATISO conference coming up in the Southern California area, LA area, March 4th. All right. Again, I see a lot of people calling out English language learners with disabilities. This is all true. I think if we were to try and sum up what's least important, I think we all understand that we have a diverse population, and we are puzzled or need to know more about serving those with disabilities and how to use multimedia technology for that, as well as possibly how to enrich for those who already get what they're supposed to or desire to learn. Okay. I can ask you guys to finish up your last thoughts. Okay, I see in the general chat pod, thank you, Sudi from CalPro. We have upcoming training resources for adults with disabilities that will be available in May and July. Thank you. So keep posted there. Okay, I'm hearing that there might be too much echo on computers. So I'll slow down, and I would encourage you to turn your volume down on your personal computer if you're hearing a lot of echo. Also, if you have not muted yourself for some reason and you have a mic on, if you can turn your mic off or mute yourself, that will decrease the echo. Thanks, Margot. Okay. Any other comments about the principles? I think it's just really great that we have this as a filter, and I can encourage you, as people have done with the CCRS standards, to find ways to take these 10 principles and do kind of what I've done, is to highlight the key parts and try and create a way to remember these better. Okay? All right, let's move on. So, let's talk about our standards. This is what we're here for. What are they? Again, I'm going to just read through these quickly, follow along, and we'll work with them in just a moment. Number 1, we want students who can construct meaning from oral presentations and literary and informational text through level-appropriate listening, reading, and viewing. We also want students who can participate in level-appropriate oral and written exchanges of information, ideas, analyses, in various social and academic contexts, responding to peer, audience, or reader comments and questions. That's a mouthful. Number 3, students who can speak and write about level-appropriate complex literary and informational texts and topics. We want students who can construct level-appropriate oral and written claims and support them with reasoning and evidence. We want students who can conduct research and evaluate and communicate findings to answer questions or solve problems. Number 6, we want students who can analyze and critique the arguments of others, orally and in writing. Number 7, we want them to be able to adapt language choices to different purposes, tasks, and audiences when speaking and writing. Number 8, we want students that can determine the meaning of words and phrases in oral presentations and literary and informational text. We want them to create clear and coherent, level-appropriate speech and text. And number 10, we want them to demonstrate command of the conventions of standard English to communicate in level-appropriate speech and writing. Okay, that was the lightning round. I hope you have it downloaded and in front of you on your screen because we're going to work with it. We're going to do a little bit of sorting tests, getting to know you, getting to know the standards. Here's what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to sort the standards, all 10 of them, into 3 groups and chat boxes you'll see below that emphasize these 3 ways of using language: productive, receptive, and interactive. And I want you to just respond to one of those boxes. So if your last name begins with A through F, for example, C. Coleman, that's my last name, I would be in the first chat box on the left, productive language. Which of the 10 standards, if your last name is between G and M, is receptive language? And which of the 10 standards, if your last name is from N to Z, is interactive language? I hope that makes sense. I'm looking at the general chat, and I'm going to speak up a little more loudly. Thank you, Susan. There's a question, will we be able to get the PowerPoint? Yes, that you will, and you're going to hear about that at the end of our time together. So I hope you can see a copy of the standards, the 10 that I just listed. Maybe I can go back and show you the first 5, and then the next 5. Turn up my audio. All right, I've turned up my audio. If it's too loud, please let me know. Oh, you know what, you guys? I am so sorry. I know that it's easier just to put the numbers, and I had meant to give you instruction to please put up the short 1 or 2, 4 words so that we can respond better and understand better what you think goes in that box. So for example, as Deborah Fazio did in the productive language, she put academic language, seems very productive, and research and evaluations. All right, I'm glad you can hear me better. All right, so again, we have 3 different chat pods, and if your last name is between A and F, you're finding which of these 10 standards belongs in productive, last name G through M receptive, and last name N through Z interactive. It looks like you guys are getting it. I'm going to give you a couple minutes. And again, the purpose in helping you sort these is to help them land and sink in a little more deeply into your learning. We know when we have to do the critical thinking of sorting that we learn better. So that's what I'm encouraging you to do. Look at these critically. All right. Do you see any patterns? Okay, I'm going to look for patterns, and I'll talk a little as I do it. So let's start with the productive language. Our students putting it out there into the world, not just listening or thinking about it, but speaking or writing. And Deborah said academic language, as I called out earlier. Marianne says 2, 3, 4, 6. Let's go back. Yes, participating in exchanges. Although, don't you think, Marianne, and I bet you already got this, that that could also be interactive? Speaking and writing, yes, number 3. Constructing oral or written claims, sounds good. And number 6, analyzing, critiquing. Okay, if we're critiquing and we're producing for other people to hear, right on. Yeah, I think a lot of people are getting it that when we're having people participate in exchanges, it is productive language. And that can also fit into interactive language. And I see that on the right side of the screen in that chat pod. You N through Z folks, you're getting that too. Whenever we're wanting students to participate in exchanges, to talk, to work together, to communicate, often it's an interactive experience. And we know from good andragogy, from good pedagogy, that that is a great way for people to learn. Okay? So I'm back at productive language. Gretchen, I love it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9, 10. Yeah, great. We're wanting students more and more. As employers are asking us, remember why we're doing all this. We're trying to prepare our students for workforce success and civic success as well, success in our communities. It's one thing to hear a teacher talk on and on like you're doing with me right now, but to be put in the place where you are producing the language, that's what we want. So the more of these standards that do that, the more benefit to our students, wouldn't you say? Yeah, Yesenia, some of these standards can go in more than one category. Let's take some time to look at the middle category, receptive language. In contrast to what we were just saying, students do need to start at a level where they can just understand meaning. Thanks, Susan, number 1. Dominica, number 8. Yeah, determine the meaning of words. You don't have to produce, you don't have to engage with anyone to make sense for yourself. And a lot of what people need to do is look at stimulus, look at media, look at text, whatever, and make sense of it. It's a good starting point now. A lot of people are seeing number 1 as a key part to receptive language. Okay. All right. So I think this is to kind of dip our feet in the water if we haven't. For those of you who are new, this will help you kind of get some categories in which to put the different types of standards. And as we think about working with that and getting a lot of bang for the buck or creating our objectives, is this just a receptive language moment? Or is it productive? Or do we want to make it interactive? Of course, it's best if we can do all of the above. But this is just a helpful first place. So let's go on to another way of thinking about the standards. Here's another sorting task in order to help you get to know them. See if we can sort the 10 standards now this time into 2 groups. Those that involve A, on the left, language necessary for our English language learners to engage in the central content-specific practices. Students working with and talking about English language arts and literacy, math, and science. And on the right side, letter B, those micro-level linguistic features, those kinds of skills that are necessary to perform these other tasks. Okay, I'll come back to that in a minute. But if you have A through M in your last name, you can see that I would encourage you, or I'm going to ask you to choose from those 10 standards which of those are really engaging with and using language around content area, around literature, or around math or science. And which of those 10 standards are really in service to those? Which are things that students need to do at a linguistic level that are going to support them in talking about that content? Susan asked the question, is it not possible that all 10 standards go across curriculum? For sure. That is definitely possible. But if we can try and break the 10 standards into 2 groups, and some of you may already have done some work around this, which ones, if you had to choose, which ones really would be most obviously tied to talking about content? And which would be about supporting that language use? I hope this makes sense. Let me give you an example. Thank you, Gretchen. So I'm going to try not to use the standards themselves to give it away, but let's say I want to, well, let's look at the standards here. All right, let's say that I want to construct meaning from a presentation. I'm just going to go there and give it away. Wouldn't I need to, number 8, determine the meaning of words? Don't I need to know and understand meaning at a smaller granular level by words, phrase, maybe sentences before I can, that's number 8, before I can understand meaning at a more macro level, a presentation that my fellow student is giving or the teacher is giving, or something from a website. I hope that is a helpful example. I'm going to leave the second page of these 10 standards on the screen. Perhaps that will be helpful. And I know this is kind of higher level thinking without having a lot of time, folks, so don't sweat it too much here. I just want you to start thinking if we were to break these into 2 groups, to sort them. Okay, so we're looking at the standards. Which ones we use to talk about content? A lot of you guys are saying standards 1 through 7. Constructing meaning, participating in exchanges, speaking and writing about informational complex texts, constructing claims supported by evidence, conducting research, analyzing, critiquing, and adapting language choices. All right, I'm going to push us through here because I don't want us to get bogged down in this too much. This can be overly conceptual if we let it go there. But I am going to say that, yeah, you don't have to worry about retracting your earlier post, Carla. The idea here is that really the first 7 really are about working with things that you do, activities you do, skills that you use when you're working with content. And these last 3, 8, 9, and 10, are really the language lifts for those. So if you didn't get it exactly, that's okay. But we'll talk about this now because I think it's important. So I'm going to give you a couple visuals. I see Catherine is still typing. Okay, great. All right, so let me push on here. One way of thinking about this is that, and this is going back to our first sorting, this is a Dave thing. This is not from on high, but I've trying to do my own sorting and my own categorizing of the standards to help me understand them and use them. And it seems like there's this idea around meaning. If you look at that arrow going across of those 3 sections, it seems like, yeah, we're trying to understand content and work with it. But first we have to find the meaning. That would be standard 8. Then we can create our own, tied to our own understandings and learnings from the past, and share it. That would be number 9. And then we want to clearly communicate it. So we find it, we want to work with it, and then we want to put it back out in a way or a format that is useful. It's reader or listener friendly. And then the standards that fit into those 3 categories would be for finding the meaning 1, 3, 5, 6, for creating and sharing 2, 3, 4, 5, and communicating clearly 1. So that's a Dave thing, but let's look at another way of organizing them. And as you've already pointed out, standards 1 through 7, those are language skills for English language learners to fully engage in content-specific practices, talking about how to work with math, how to do applications in science, how to work with literature and create arguments. And like I said, it begins with extracting meaning and then progresses to engaging in the practices with that meaning. Standards 8 through 10 are those linguistic skills to support 1 through 7. And an example is, like I said earlier, um, looking at Standard 8, determining the meanings of words and phrases is necessary to support constructing meaning number 1. I hope that's clear and helpful. This is in the document itself. It looks like this. So you can see the standards on the left, cut in 2 parts between 7 and 8, and the description of that. Again, on the top left, 1 through 7 describe the necessary engagement with content, and 8 through 10 is those features and using language to support that. Okay. I'm going to move us on because there's another key part to this document that its basic understanding is important, and that is the 1 through 5 level descriptors. You can see on the right of the screen that this is one example, and we'll look at it more in detail in just a moment. But basically, one way of looking at the standards has each of the standards in a column on the left and a progression of difficulty on the right. And if you look at the bullets with me, you're going to see that their 5 levels are included with each of the 10 standards. They describe a range of student proficiency for each standard. They inform instruction by providing a granular description of learner knowledge and skills at each level, going from left to right. And really what it comes down to is they direct teachers to differentiate and scaffold instruction. So let's look at this. What can we pull out? Overall, this is the big takeaway. There are 3 themes related to these standards: alignment, non-alignment. Standard 1, Guiding Principle 8, it's really about differentiating our instruction for the different levels, interests, and needs of our students using scaffolding, and as we talked about, really tying it to content and use of our students. So the question is, let's just share our expertise. How do you or how does your program already scaffold instruction to improve student learning? Please share your ideas in the chat pod in the middle of your screen. What are you already doing, just in general ways, to help support instruction for our adult language learners of English? Okay. This is great. I don't know who said this first or if I made it up or stole it from someone else, but I've always thought that the best ESOL or ESL teachers are those with the most and the best pictures. And that's what I'm seeing you put up on the screen here. Mari says EL Civic instruction. Yeah, that's helpful. I'm going to jump past that for a minute, though, and just call out the wonderful ways you guys give visual cues to our students. We need context that people can understand. So graphic organizers, photos, pictures, whiteboards, thinking maps, wonderful posters, videos, multimedia. Okay, these are all really important, and I love what Gretchen put there towards the bottom, providing models for speaking and writing. We could talk neuroscience for a little while, but we won't go too deeply. Basically, we know that unless we've seen it, we cannot replicate it. That's an overarching, general, sweeping comment. But we, especially when it comes to these rigorous, challenging skills, we need to provide models for our students, especially when it's a second language or third language, and if students don't come from an educated background. Organization, key words, all of these things are important to model. And I love the other element that people are putting up there is that we need to have people engage with each other. We know that good learning happens when there's this nice balance of routine that lowers the affective filter so people can be comfortable, but also raises the novelty. And what a great way to do that through mixers, cooperative learning, so that people know what's going to happen, but every new interaction is is novel and different. It makes it interesting, even though you may be asking the same question to 20 different people. So I love what you guys are saying about mixers. Um, we also are talking about coordinating our textbook with computer programs. Thank you, Deborah. Really helpful if we can use technology to differentiate instruction, maybe work with some groups or one group face-to-face and have another group focus on drilling deep on some skills on a computer program. Yeah, Lee says in leveling them and putting them in helpful groups sometimes, likability groups. So many great things that we are already doing. So I really want to make this point, and I'll say it again at the end. What these standards are, and this is a Dave thing, I'm not quoting anyone, but as I engage with these standards and try and analyze them and walk away with some key takeaways, I think it's really about doing what good teachers do, but this being more acknowledged and mandated at a higher level. And this is going to force us to not just have pockets of excellence where some good teachers do it and some who are new to the profession aren't yet, or those who have been, but maybe they've fallen away, whatever. We're all going to be working together because we know that it's important. So I'm seeing so many great things. Again, a few things with technology, Quizlet, a wonderful way for students to practice vocabulary. Again, Mary talks about multimedia. All right, so you guys know this idea. This is not new. It's just refining our craft, doing it in groups, and doing it even better. I'm going to let a few people finish their comments, and then we're going to do one more application before we try and move forward. All right, again, I like what you said, Mary, tapping into students' prior knowledge. This is excellent, and this ties back to the guiding principles. Okay, nice. Mentoring newer instructors with experienced instructors. Beautiful, Carol. All right, so we don't have a lot of time for this, but I'm going to just quickly just give a real brief reminder of what scaffolding is, some principles. So scaffolding, if you look at a picture, is basically going from the ground up, helping us get to higher places that we couldn't on our own. And this is really based on Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. Basically what's happening is here, and you guys know this, is that if you look at concentric circles, right in the middle, the dark blue is things that each one of us can do as learners on our own. And the third circle out are things that we can't do. And the middle circle, that zone of proximal development, is what we can do with help. And we're trying to create lots of ways to get our students from the dark blue into the light blue so that they can move even into the lighter blue. Again, this is a dynamic process. I'm not going to read word for word here, but basically let's look at the last bullet. The only way for an instructor to know what learners need in this process is to dialogue and interact with them. And I think we're getting it at all levels, that we need to be more reflective. We need, starting with good observation of our students and talking with them and being transparent with them about what's happening, and having them share and us share with them both their strengths and needs. This is super important, and we can touch more on this in our next webinar. Okay. We're going to go really fast here in this little application exercise. I wanted you to look at a level descriptors for the first standard. You can see there are 5 of them, and you can see highlighted are level 1 and level 3. And I want you to first look with me at the standard on the left. Construct meaning from oral presentations, blah, 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 from different types of presentations. If you are a level 1 or low level teacher, look at level 1 and look at the bullet. How can we scaffold so that students identify a few keywords and phrases in oral communication and simple spoken and written text? How can we let students show us that they can do this? How can we support them and help them in going beyond where they are currently now in terms of identifying keywords and phrases that are important in text or in what people say? If you're a higher level teacher, look at level 3, just the top 3 bullets. Let's move to the next screen. Determine a central idea or theme. How do you support students in doing that? How do you help them find, call out, identify, and share central ideas, key details, and answer questions about these? What's the first thing that comes into your head? Level 1, you got some ideas. Level 3, people who work with higher level students or want to take on the challenge. How do you help students? Yes, love it. I'm going to jump right into that, Leslie. Graphic organizers. Love, love, love it. Okay. I swear I'm going to do my doctorate on the power of organizing and categorizing information as a way to more deeply learn and more quickly retrieve information to solve problems. And I love that this is being highlighted. Okay, so you guys can see level 1, folks. Use visuals, use visuals, use visuals. I love closed writings. We're giving them some help, but they got to do the rest. Okay, TPR and maybe CPR. All right, you guys have talked about this before, and I encourage you to apply it to this specific standard. You're doing a great job. Hey, Marari, ask open questions. Ask questions that require higher levels of critical thinking. Thank you. Open-ended questions. All right, guys, I'm going to have to let you finish a few more comments, and people just look at these. I'll make sure that we archive these, because these are good stuff, and we don't have time to really go through them one at a time. I recognize that our time is limited, but as we continue to work with these, not only will we be able to do them faster, but our students will be able to as well. I'm loving the ideas you guys are putting about writing frames, sentence frames, speaking frames. We'll talk more about this webinar too. I love the way multimodalities of visual, kinesthetic, oral. Beautiful. Okay, guys, I'm going to kill this moment. I'm glad you're excited about doing it because that's our task. All right, so let's look. A couple quickies here. Basics. Simplify and then build on task complexity. Highlight important features like I'm doing with these highlights and provide models. Make it safe. Super important that we make people comfortable. We know if you're in trauma mode or you're nervous or you're freaked out, you're not going to learn. So we need to make it safe. We need to listen to our students. Just enough support, not overdo it. We have to repeat, 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 recycle, recycle. All right, what's happening here? And like I said before, offer information organizational tools to our learners so that they can categorize for deeper learning and quicker retrieval. Okay, I see some good stuff coming up here in the general chat. Thanks, Stephen, for adding that poetry and humor are great things to soften, humanize, and support learning. Okay, real quickly before we go, I see our time is up, but I want to say 2 more things. First of all, if it's not obvious, maybe it is or wasn't, it should be now that we need each other in this work. Many of us are focusing on coming together to learn and to help our students learn. Those are professional learning communities, super effective. I want to highlight the fact that we have a professional learning community institute, a way to learn about how to do these and make these happen at our schools. If you look in the lower right corner, that's an upcoming event with CALPRO. Applications are due March 17th. In just a moment, we'll put up the link. I'm going to move us on. Okay. 2 webinars related to this very content of ELPS. I will be back March 14th at the same BAT channel, same BAT time. We're going to talk about applying the standards more specifically. Got some great activities for you to take home if you're not using them, and I'm expecting you to bring your best as well. Finally, Haida Wrigley, one of our CTE specialists in the nation, will be talking in a 3rd and final webinar about working with English language learners in CTE and other classes. I encourage you to join us for those as well. I'm going to hand the mic over quickly to Jennifer, and before I do, I just want to say thank you for your input in this overview introduction to the standards. I can't wait to be back with you in a month. Thanks again.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you everyone for being here. I think it was about 60 of you since some of you are in groups. So it was great to have you. We look forward to having you back with Dave to get more in detail and more focused on the classroom in March 14th. And I see that a lot of you registered for 2 or all 3 of these webinars at, at the same time, so that's great. When we close this meeting, you will be taken to an evaluation form, so please give us some feedback on how this went today and how well it matched your expectations. And have a great afternoon. Thank you.